I've always liked solitude. The quiet. The kind that only exists where cell service doesn't. Where the wind is the only thing you hear for hours. Where your thoughts get so loud you actually have to deal with them. That's why I picked a primitive site deep in the Wallowa-Whitman National Forest in Oregon. It wasn't on the official Forest Service map. Someone on a survivalist forum mentioned it once, said it was peaceful, hidden, and never busy. Sounded perfect. I'd been unraveling at work, project deadlines, meetings, voices, phones ringing, people needing things from me constantly. So I took a Friday off, packed up my old Toyota Tacoma, and made the 6-hour drive from Boise. The last leg of the trip was 2 hours of winding dirt road. No signs, no gas stations, just terrain. The kind that makes you grip the wheel a little tighter. I'd driven worse. When I finally pulled in, it was late afternoon, 4:45 maybe. The clearing was just like the post described. A flat little patch beside a thin creek, circled in by dense pine. No cell signal, just the hum of insects and the breeze sliding through leaves like breath. But there was one thing that threw me off. There was already a tent set up. Faded blue. Slouched on one side like the wind had taken a bite out of it and no one ever fixed it. It looked abandoned. No car nearby. No campfire ring. No gear. Just that tent, sitting there like someone had given up halfway through the process. I got out, stretched my back, and walked a few circles around it. No footprints. No trash. No food wrappers. I called out, just to be sure. Hey, anyone here? Nothing. I figured someone had left it and forgotten it, or maybe dumped it. People are strange. So I set up my tent on the other side of the clearing, closer to the creek. Maybe 30 feet away from the old one. Still close enough that I could keep an eye on it. It was a hot July day, but once the sun dipped behind the ridge, the forest cooled fast. The shadows came quick and thick. I grilled a small meal on my propane burner, cracked a beer, and sat by the water, watching the light drain out of the trees. By 9:30, it was dark enough that I needed the headlamp. Still no sign of anyone. I kept glancing toward that sagging blue tent. It bothered me. How out of place it looked. How still it was. But I brushed it off. Maybe someone was doing a multi-day hike and just left it behind. Happens all the time. Around 11, I zipped myself into my tent and lay down. That's when the forest changed. You start to notice it when you camp alone a lot. There's a difference between natural night sounds, wind, owls, the occasional twig snap, and something else. Something that doesn't quite belong. At first it was subtle. A rustling. Not constant. Just then. A branch cracking. One that shouldn't have been there. I told myself it was a deer. An elk maybe. But around midnight I started hearing voices. Not loud. Whispered. Almost like two people trying not to be heard. Except they weren't far. 30 feet maybe. I sat up. My heart started knocking hard in my chest. I turned off my headlamp and listened. Everything in me wanted to believe it was just hikers or kids messing around. But these weren't teenagers being loud or stupid. These voices were steady. Calm. Like they knew I was there. Like they didn't care if I heard them or not. Then they stopped. I waited. 10 minutes. Probably more. Didn't move. Didn't breathe too loud. My tent was dark, but the moon outside was bright enough through the mesh that I could see faint shapes. Outlines of trees. My truck. And then something moved. Right outside my tent. A shadow passed. Slow. Then the zipper. It tugged once. Soft. Deliberate. Not wind. Not an accident. I don't know what kicked in. Instinct, maybe. Panic. But I grabbed the Glock my dad made me bring. Thank God. I shouted. I have a gun. I will shoot. The zipper froze. I didn't wait. I fired a shot straight up, through the roof of my tent. The blast cracked through the trees like thunder. My ears rang. But the silence after was worse. Like the woods themselves were holding their breath. I waited. I yelled again. Who's out there? No reply. No running. No movement. Just silence. I didn't sleep. Not for a second. I sat there with my back against the cooler, clutching the Glock, listening to the night slowly shift back to normal. The whispering never came back, but I never put the gun down. When light finally came, I unzipped the tent and stepped out. The air felt heavier, like something had been there and just left. I looked toward the blue tent. It was gone. Not collapsed. Not torn down. Just gone. I walked over, thinking maybe I misjudged the distance. But there was nothing. No tent. No fabric. No stakes. Just a patch of flattened grass. Then I looked closer. Footprints. All around my campsite. Circling it. Deep ones. Heavy boots. Bigger than mine. Some going one direction, some doubling back. Some side by side. Like two people standing close together. They weren't mine. I could tell by the tread. I didn't wait. I packed fast. Tent, gear, cooler. Stuffed it all into the truck bed in under 15 minutes. Didn't eat. Didn't brush my teeth. Just drove. Winding back down that dirt road, checking the mirrors every few seconds. I didn't stop until I hit La Grande and got back into cell range. Then I called the Wallowa Ranger District. Gave them the trail name I'd used to access the spot. The GPS coordinates. Everything. The woman on the line paused. She asked me to repeat the info. Then she said, "Sir, we don't maintain any primitive or official campsites in that area. That trail hasn't been serviced since last fall due to landslides. Are you sure about the location?" I was sure. She asked if I wanted to file a report. I told her no. What would I even say? I didn't see anyone. Nothing was taken. No damage. Just weird. That night stayed with me. I've thought about it a lot. The voices. The tent. The footprints. The fact that the Forest Service claims that place isn't a campsite at all. But what really gets me is the gun. I almost didn't bring it. I'm not a gun guy. Never have been. But my dad insisted. Said, "You're going out there alone. Miles from anyone. Just take it. For peace of mind." He's one of those old school types. Grew up before GPS and bear spray. Trusts gut feelings more than anything. I argued. He won. He even gave me the ammo box himself. If I hadn't fired that shot, I don't know what would have happened. Whoever, or whatever, was on the other side of that zipper wasn't just curious. They were patient. They were close. They were silent when they wanted to be. And that kind of silence, that doesn't come from animals. I've never been back. I won't. I don't even check forums anymore. Don't look at trail maps. Sometimes I wonder if that tent wasn't there when I arrived. If it was set up after I fell asleep. If it was meant to be seen. Or maybe not. Maybe I wasn't the one doing the watching that night. Maybe I was the one being watched. Long before I ever noticed. In early July of 2012, I took my daughter Eliza to the annual summer carnival held in a beachside town called Oceanside, Oregon. It was the kind of local event you look forward to all year. The kind that smells like kettle corn and sea air, where string lights hang over the boardwalk and kids run wild with faces sticky from snow cones. Eliza was 6 then, curious in a way that made strangers smile and energetic in a way that made me tired just watching her. Her eyes lit up like sparklers at even the smallest things. We arrived just as the sun was beginning to melt into the Pacific, painting everything in soft pink and tangerine. The town's main strip was blocked off for the event. Tents lined the sidewalks, games, food stands, local vendors selling handmade jewelry. The air was thick with the smell of fried dough and sunscreen. You could hear the carousel music even before you reached the entrance. Eliza was practically bouncing in her sandals. I held her hand as we wove through the crowd, her arms stretched as far as it would go from mine, tugging toward every new sound. She wanted to do everything: the Ferris wheel, the pony rides, the duck pond game. She won a small green dinosaur at the ring toss and named it Marshmallow. She made me carry it after 30 seconds. By 8, the place was packed. Families pushing strollers. Teenagers in crop tops and baseball jerseys. Couples sharing funnel cakes. It felt safe. Familiar. Warm in that way small-town events sometimes are, like nothing bad could possibly happen under the glow of carnival lights. After riding the bumper cars twice, Eliza tugged at my hand and pointed toward the food court. "Ice cream, please." "Please," she begged, stretching the word out like a song. The food area was bustling. Grills sizzling. People laughing. A kid dropped a lemonade and started crying. I joined the line at the ice cream stand, gripping Eliza's hand tightly. But the line snaked around metal barriers and moved slow. She started to get antsy, hopping in place. Then she pointed. "Can I go look at that cart? The pink one?" It was the cotton candy stand. Just a few steps away. Bright lights spun in pastel colors, and the machine inside was puffing out clouds of sugar that looked like magic. I hesitated. She was close enough to see clearly, and there were dozens of people around. It felt harmless. I nodded but gave her a firm look. "Stay right there, right where I can see you." She nodded. Her little legs skipped off toward the glowing cart. I watched her for the first minute. She stood still, mesmerized by the spinning strands. But then, a commotion behind me. Someone tripped and spilled a soda. Ice and sticky liquid sprayed across the pavement. A group of teenagers laughed, trying to help. I turned for just a second, to glance at the noise. When I looked back, Eliza was gone. My heart didn't skip. It stopped. "Eliza?" I said, scanning the crowd. My voice too low to matter. "Nothing." I stepped out of the line, pushing past people. "Eliza!" Panic bloomed in my chest like fire. My eyes darted everywhere, the food stalls, the nearby benches, the game booths. I called her name again, louder this time. Still nothing. The cotton candy cart was empty. I ran to it, looked behind it. Nothing. "Eliza!" My voice cracked. My throat tightened. I pushed through the crowd, checking under tables, around corners. It had only been a minute. Maybe less. That's all it takes. Then I heard it. A soft sound, almost drowned out by the noise of the crowd. Crying. Muffled. I followed it, behind a closed popcorn booth near the edge of the food court. There, crouched low, almost hidden behind a stack of unused folding chairs, was Eliza. She was crying, eyes wide, cheeks flushed. A man knelt beside her, one hand on her shoulder. He looked up as I approached. Calm. Too calm. "She got confused," he said smoothly. "Came to me. I was just about to find security." He stood up as he spoke. His voice was even, unapologetic. Something inside me recoiled. He wore jeans, a plain white t-shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. Nothing flashy, but his eyes were wrong. Too sharp, too blank. There was no surprise in his expression, no concern. Eliza saw me and immediately reached out, sobbing harder. I scooped her into my arms, pulling her close. I didn't say anything to him. I just looked. Hard. He didn't flinch. He didn't explain further. He just stood there like he was waiting for me to leave first. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a plan. I turned and walked quickly toward the crowd, holding Eliza tight against my chest. I didn't stop until I found a security guard near the Ferris wheel. I flagged him down, breathless. When I pointed back toward where the man had been, he was gone. Vapor. Gone. The guard called for backup. We were escorted to the small security station near the beach access gate. The room was loud with radios and fluorescent lights. Eliza clung to me, sniffling. I tried to stay calm, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The police arrived about 20 minutes later. They took my statement, asked for a description, questioned Eliza gently. She didn't have much to say, just that she thought the man was nice at first. That he said something about helping her find me. That he told her to stay quiet. That part made my stomach twist. While we waited, I sat in the corner of the security office, watching the carnival through the glass window. People still walked by laughing, eating funnel cakes, oblivious to what had almost happened just a few steps away. It made everything feel unreal, like we'd slipped into a parallel version of that night, a darker one that only we knew existed. Then one of the security guards came back. He pulled the detective aside and whispered something. Their faces changed. Grim. Serious. The detective asked to speak with me again. "We found something," he said. "Behind the popcorn booth. Right where Eliza had been hidden. Zip ties. 2 small ones. Twisted together. In candy wrappers. The same kind the man had in his pocket. He didn't have time to use them." That's what the detective said. But he had them. He was ready. They didn't have to explain further. I understood. If I hadn't found her then, if I'd looked in the wrong direction for 10 more seconds, this story would have ended differently. The carnival shut down early that night. We were escorted out to the parking lot. The officers offered to walk us to the car. I accepted. I drove home slow. Real slow. Eliza fell asleep in the back seat, clutching marshmallow. Her face still streaked with dried tears. I watched her through the rearview mirror the whole way. And I didn't sleep for 2 nights after. It was the summer of 2014, and I was 17 years old when my family flew to southern Italy for vacation. We'd been planning the trip for over a year, visiting relatives, eating well, escaping the gray sameness of the suburbs outside Munich. My parents were both born in Europe, and this trip felt like a return. For them. For me, it was an adventure. Sun, freedom, and no school. When we landed in Bari, my uncle Stefano was already waiting for us at the airport. He drove us inland in his old Fiat station wagon, the kind that rattled even when idle. We made our way up winding roads into the hills of Basilicata, where time moved slower. The village where he lived had maybe 400 people, 3 cafes, and a crumbling stone church that rang its bells every hour, even at night. We pulled up to his house just as the evening light settled over the hills like a warm shawl. The air smelled like rosemary and dust. A few cousins were already waiting, arms open, calling out greetings in a mix of Italian and German. The first few days were quiet. We ate too much, slept too late, and spent long afternoons sitting in the shade talking about old stories. I remember feeling happy, safe, until the morning my cousin Luca pulled up to our house and honked the horn. "Vieni Nico," he shouted. "Let's go for a ride." He was sitting on a brand new black BMW motorcycle, the kind that made older men stop and nod. He grinned like a fox. I hesitated, leaning against the doorway with a piece of bread in my hand. "Come on," he said. "The weather's perfect. We'll be back in an hour." I didn't have plans. The sky was endless blue. So I dropped the bread, grabbed my shoes, and climbed on behind him. We rode for miles, through hills, olive groves, and sun-bleached roads that twisted like ribbons. The wind felt sharp and clean, and for a while, I forgot everything else. Luca was always a speed junkie. He liked the thrill, and usually he was careful. Usually. But that day, just outside the village of Pastici, things went wrong. A truck appeared suddenly around a blind corner. Luca swerved. We veered hard into the opposite lane. I remember the road tilting, the handlebars jerking. Then nothing. Darkness. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room. The walls were pale yellow. I was wearing an eye shield. My mouth was dry. My body ached in places I couldn't name. I tried to move. I heard voices. "Where am I?" I croaked. My mother's voice cracked as she answered. "You're in the hospital in Matera. You had an accident." And then it came back to me in pieces. The road. The swerve. The truck. I reached toward my face, but my hands were weak. I could feel the bandages over my eyes. "What happened?" I asked. "You have glass fragments in your eyes," my father said quietly. "They're not sure yet how bad it is." They tried to sound calm, but their voices were tight. The truth was worse than I wanted to admit. I might lose my vision. The doctor came in not long after. He was kind but efficient. He explained the damage, that they'd removed some shards, that they had to wait to see if the inflammation would go down before they could assess the full extent. After a while, my parents had to leave. Visiting hours. I was alone again in that pale room, bandaged and unsure of my future. That night, I woke up to the sound of someone moving in the room. "Who's there?" I asked. There was a pause, then a voice. Soft, feminine. "My name is Livia," she said. "I'm here with you. You're not alone." I blinked, even though I couldn't see. "Thank you," I said. I had an accident. I can't see." "Yes," she said. "But you will." Her voice was calm, almost melodic. She sounded young. Maybe my age. I was grateful. More than I could say. I hated the silence. Hated the way the room felt like a tomb when no one else was around. "Why are you here?" I asked. There was a pause. "To help you," she said. "You needed someone." I smiled, even though I was still scared. We talked for what felt like hours. I told her about school, about my friends back in Germany, about the trip, about the accident. She listened patiently. Sometimes she asked questions, but mostly she just let me speak. And somehow, she seemed to already know things. About me, about the accident, about Luca. "How do you know my name?" I asked once. "I just do," she said simply. Her presence became the only thing that kept me sane in those long days. Every time I woke up, she was there, whispering encouragement, telling stories, promising things would get better. But any time a nurse walked in, or my parents visited, she disappeared. Gone. Not a sound. Like she'd never been there. I started to think maybe the nurses just didn't see her. That she was shy. That she only wanted to talk when it was just us. One night, I asked her if she was in pain. "No," she said. "Not anymore." That answer stayed with me. Another night, she placed her hand gently over my bandages. I could feel the warmth of her fingers through the gauze. "You'll see again, Nico," she said. "I promise." Then I fell asleep. When I woke up, the doctor was in the room with my parents. "Time to take off the bandages," he said. My heart raced. They worked carefully, slowly unwinding the gauze. I held my breath. And then, light, blurry, harsh, but light. I blinked. Shapes started to form. My mother's face. My father's shoulders. I can see, I whispered. Tears welled in their eyes. The doctor smiled. You're very lucky, he said. That was close. I turned my head to the right, expecting to see Livia. But there was nothing. No second bed. No chair. Just a window. Where's the other bed? I asked. The doctor tilted his head. What bed? The one next to mine. The girl. Livia. The room fell silent. There's never been another bed in here, the doctor said. You've been in a single room since the night you arrived. My mother covered her mouth and began to cry. I didn't argue. I understood.